Hello and welcome. My name is Tracy Hermans, and I'm the Community Director for the Western Region for Commerce Next. Commerce Next is a community event series and conference for retail and D2C brands. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, and we are presenting the AI Playbook for e-commerce and what's new for 2025. We have a great group of thought leaders, including Mike Dupuis, who's the CDO at Catalyst Brands, Annie Soderstrom, who is the VP of Digital Product at Skims, Dan Karpinski, the Director of Digital Product at Archipelago, and Jason Seba, the CMO at Session AI. Please note that we will be taking your questions, so feel free to load them up during the presentations. Next, I want to thank today's webinar sponsor, Session AI, and our team at Commerce Next, which includes Alan, Jenny, Corey, Scott, Robert, and Veronica, who are behind the scenes helping to make this webinar a success. Also, we have a few upcoming Commerce Next events. First, save the date for our next webinar on Wednesday, April 9th, on conversational commerce and customer experience, turning real-time engagement into revenue. This will also be moderated by our co-founder, Alan Dick, who is also on this webinar call. Also, if you haven't already, don't forget to register for our e-commerce growth show. That's June 24th to the 26th in New York City. It's surprising it's only 2 months away, and be sure to mark the calendars. The registration, as a reminder, it is free for leaders at both scaled retail and D2C brands. And there is an amazing travel program. The travel program provides up to $1,200 in travel reimbursement in exchange for participating in our one-on-one meeting program. We've got some great speakers lined up, including speakers from American Eagle, Wayfair, Reformation, Coach, and many more. You can check it out on commercenext.com/conference, or Corey will also go ahead and drop the link in the chat window. Also, as a reminder, if you missed any of our past event or webinars, you can find the replays on YouTube. So for today's agenda, I'm going to go through some important information about our webinar platform. We'll also follow it up with Jason's presentation from Session AI. And then after that, we'll go to the live audience polls and then jump into our panel session with Catalyst Brand, Skims, Archipelago, and Session AI. Okay, first up, I mentioned a few housekeeping notes, but I want to just make sure that everyone goes through this if it's your first time or if you're coming back to us as an audience member. First, we will have the recording for this webinar available tomorrow. Don't worry if you miss out on anything. Next, I want to take a minute to remind you about the webinar platform functionality. So if you go to the upper right-hand side, you'll see in big marker, there's 4 tabs. From left to right, chat, Q&A, polls, and handouts. Use the chat tab when you want to communicate with other attendees or offer a shout out to the speakers. Go ahead and use the polls tab where you can participate in the live audience polls, and then we can review the results when we close the poll. Also, there's the handouts tab, which we can use for today's presentation. There'll be some helpful information to download. The most powerful tool, though, is our Q&A tab. We really want you to participate in today's webinar. It's a great, exciting topic. Because we're a community here, feel free to ask any burning questions. And you can also upvote any of those questions, which is really helpful for us to prioritize which ones you want us to read out. Okay, a final remark. If you are watching this on replay, please note that the handouts are still available. You can click on the highlighted document icon at the bottom in the video player. All right, next up, I'm excited to introduce you to the CMO at Jason Seba at Session AI. Jason, can you go ahead and take it away? Rob, thanks for adding him to the room.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate you spending time with us today. Very excited to talk AI and AI decisioning with everyone. I'm a geek for this stuff, so hopefully you will learn something today, and you'll see kind of how we were all led kind of to this very interesting moment, I'd say, that we're in right now. Let's get into it. So Omi is a crazy company here in the Bay Area. I'm actually wearing a device, a dev kit. It is a device that is an always-on AI listening device. And so what it does is it actually transcribes your conversations and then uses ChatGPT to summarize them. And they're going to release something later this year that actually taps into brainwaves. I think this is a little bit more science fiction, but this one, the pendant that goes around your neck, is $89. is something that actually records all day long. And just think of like Otter, you know, how everyone has their note takers in their Zoom meetings. Think about this just being always on and listening to your conversations, and also being a memory for you, right? Somewhere to go back and tap into memories. And so I just wanted to highlight this because this is like the start of, I would say, like personal data being really, really, really ubiquitous. And one of the ways that will kind of feed in to consumer behavior and what we'll be doing as e-commerce leaders in the future. But what's driving this is really like the growth in kind of the foundational AI models, right? And so this is from 2 days ago. There's an exam called Humanity's Last Exam, and the Center for AI Safety and Scale AI have kind of built this exam, and it is with experts across many, many, many kind of subjects. And Gemini, OpenAI are starting to get higher and higher and higher scores on this. And if you look at it, it's just still kind of growing exponentially. What's interesting about this is, knowledge is just going to be free and available to people at their fingertips. But even more than that is it's coming at a low cost. And so this is a chart from earlier this year, just showing the driving down of costs. So if you look at GPT-4 in June of 2023, the cost per 1,000,000 tokens. So this is essentially like you think of like credits and a way to measure like how much AI computation people are using. It's already dropped 99.7% in a year. And so you think about this as a logarithmic scale at the bottom, right? The cost of AI is like driving down dramatically. And so what that's going to do is not only give us lots of the ability to compute and understand things more deeply, but also it's going to mean that people are going to crunch more and more data. And so that's customer data and that's behavioral data. And we'll talk about kind of the rise of this idea of AI decisioning that hit. And so a couple days ago, this last week, Gemini 2.5 hit. It's like the smartest model that's out there. It's going to be just a continued race against, OpenAI, Google, and others. But everyone just wanted to make pictures. So Studio Ghibli, like everyone just essentially took these amazing models and did pictures. These are pictures of our family and kids. We even put, anime pictures on cookies at Shop Talk last week. And we even, ran it through for the webinar. And then everyone's favorite memes, they were hitting all week too. And so it's funny because there's really this idea that when you have new technologies, when they become like a toy, that's when people really, really adopt them. And so I think we're seeing that, not only across kind of consumer models, but we're also seeing it now in business. And so if you think about it, everything we do, everything we say, everything we do online is a potential data signal. And so realistically, there's been this kind of rules-based model that everyone is focused on in the future. And then in the future, it's really AI that takes this complexity and is able to break it down into something useful. And so I think that's really a good way for us to kind of lead into this idea of AI decisioning. And so this model is from David Arab. And so if you don't know David, he is an analyst. He really was the person who I would say understood, kind of customer data platforms or CDPs the best. And this is talking about essentially like a decisioning layer between kind of the customer data that's there and all the profiles that are there, and then the predictive models, and then the delivery mechanisms, right? So the different channels, so web, email, et cetera. And so what we're seeing is that there's this kind of layer that's happening in between, like I said, customer data, but then also behavioral data that's allowing people to take action. And one of those things is it's happening now in real time, right? Behavior. And so in the last 60 years, this is, people are trying to understand, like, how does this change computing, right? And so, back in the past, 60 years ago, we were talking about punch cards. People essentially would take data and batch process it. In kind of the second wave, it was you told computers essentially what you wanted, what you program them to do things, right? So you think about DOS prompts, you think about programming essentially coding. You describe what you want a computer to do and then have it do it. And now this kind of third paradigm is, you've been hearing this idea of maybe like vibe coding. It's out there. Is essentially you tell a computer or machine or an AI what you want it to do, and then it takes action for you, right? And so, if and I would argue that if you are a marketer or an e-commerce person, like getting in there and like building things, I've gone in there and like used Cursor to go build programs of things that I'm interested in. And like, I don't necessarily code all the time, but this is a way for me to like go and build, and it's accessible to people. It's not easy, but if you're curious, it's definitely something where you can get in there and build things on your own. And that's the only way, I would say, with these new changes in technology, that's really the only way to learn and to move forward with it. And I would say there's this concept almost of like jazz where the AI you can go back and forth with, right? And be able to almost like make music together and be able to create together in ways that you just really couldn't before. And so for the people who are early adopters, I think this is just a really unique time in computing. So this has led us to like a very interesting moment, I would say, where AI decisioning is becoming a thing. And so there were a couple of kind of big, I would say big news items, let's say, or big kind of stakes in the ground, where High Touch raised last year $80 million to kind of build this idea of AI decisioning. And High Touch is a CDP, and they are building kind of this AI decisioning on top of the customer data platform. OfferFit just got bought actually last week by Braze. And so OfferFit's a company that I've worked with in the past too as an advisor. Just really like those guys. They're doing something really interesting where they're using essentially AI decisioning as a layer over customer data, and they're doing it to optimize marketing channels. And then Session AI, what we're doing is we're actually using real-time behavior and customer data as an input to make those decisions and put the right things in front of the right people. And we'll talk more about what that looks like. It's just what's unique here is that there's a whole set, there's this new idea that is happening. And the AI technology that's growing is taking that complexity and making this a possibility. And so what's different about this is kind of this new always on era from a traditional kind of marketing approach where you define segments and rules. You would end up essentially retooling your campaigns to focus on people. With AI decisioning, you actually set a business outcome, right? So you might look at conversion, you might look at optimizing for revenue, and then you put some of the marketing assets, essentially, you put it in front of people, and then it decides, the machine decides what action to take. And so whether that's across different channels or whether that's in real time on a website or in a mobile app. And so what changes here is that marketing becomes like instead of having set marketing campaigns, you're actually looking at the ability to drive to outcomes based on the campaigns or the assets that you put in. So it is giving the right offer to the right person at the right time. And I'll talk about what that looks like. It's also changing people's behavior, like as consumers. And so this is a chart that we've actually looked at for a long time, where product discovery is changing. And so how people are finding products, today it's search engines. Tomorrow it really is going to be AI, using like kind of ChatGPT and the AI to go in and find things that you might be interested in. But next, it's really going to be about the AI recommending things to you. And so, for example, like I like randomly Japanese hip hop mixtapes, right? And so, there's very few people that are going to also care about that. But I want, the agent to go out and find when someone posts that on a Japanese auction site, find that for me and put it in front of me and give me the option to buy it. And so that's something that I think people will give up a lot of their agency to the machine, not only for discovery, but really for purchase. And so right now you have people who are, people are going to e-commerce websites to make their purchases. Tomorrow it'll be devices, and this is funny. This is a device, the Rabbit R1 was something that got released about a year ago at CES, and it's interesting because it really got lambasted for being useless. But in a year, it's actually gotten a lot more useful. And the kind of AI agent where you can have it do things and ask it to take actions for you has gotten a lot better. And in the future, people are really going to give over a lot of agency to the machine. And I think we'll have choices limited. Like maybe you'll narrow it down to a few choices, maybe 3 choices. And you might have that kind of illusion of choice, or you might have the machine just take care of it for you. Like we've talked about, I never want to think about soap again, right? I know the type of soap I want. Just go take care of it for me and find it at the right price from the right person in a way that will get to me on time. And so I think you'll see a lot of people actually building websites for machines in the future, right? So a lot of times what we're doing is we're actually building our websites for humans to come in, but ultimately with so many AI agents taking action for us, a lot of what the web will be built for and apps will be built for really for machines to come in and transact with us and take actions and do research for us. And so that's definitely going to change how e-commerce people are building sites and trying to put products in front of people. All right, so there's already data on this, right? So right now, there's even 34% of consumers would let AI would make a purchase on their behalf. That number is just going to go up. And then you have things like Perplexity, where they have a shopping agent where they're really trying to take aim at Amazon and Google, and really Google is going to cannibalize search, right? And so this is another concept where you have agents, and the way people are starting to shop and the way people are starting to transact and search online really has a lot to do with chat and search and using AI, using essentially like an AI search versus kind of a typical search. And so when you think about just bidding for search terms with SEO, it's going to look really different than this, right? Like the AI agent is going to put a couple choices in front of people, and people will transact like in chat or with voice, and then have agents that will just do things on their behalf over and over again. Like for example, searching for airline tickets and buying at a certain price, or looking for a certain product at a certain price and then taking action for you. Perplexity has already put this out, and it is interesting. Like it's essentially doing a lot of the research. It's essentially compiling a lot of the research that you might do by searching on your own, and then putting in front of you, options to buy. It's pretty interesting. All right, so let's talk about kind of the emerging use cases in 2025. So we talked about AI shopping agents, this idea of AI decisioning, which we'll get more into the details of, conversational commerce, like we talked about, being able to transact online. There really is this kind of mainstream adoption of AI-powered personalization. You're seeing that across many shopping apps and through different e-commerce sites. Also, subscription commerce, so people wanting their subscriptions to kind of adapt to them online. And these are use cases that are actually revenue driving, I would say, at this point. And then finally, kind of AR, VR technologies for trying visualization. Like this has been around for a while, but it's just becoming like really, really mainstream. Okay, so let's jump into how this kind of AI decisioning works with behavior. And so really one of the things is this divide between anonymous users and known users, right? So really right now, 90%, 80%, 70%, depending on your site, of site visitors are anonymous. And people are spending lots of money on paid search, right? And driving a ton of traffic, and a lot of those first-time visitors bounce and don't come back. And anonymous users really are converting at a much, much lower rate. And there just really hasn't been technology to do much with these consumers. And we talked about AI now being able to understand behavior at scale, and that really opens up some really new applications. And what, instead of having these kind of like configured rules or segments, now the AI is able to observe behavior and context, and then decide the next action on the fly. And so let me talk to you a little bit about what we're doing here at Session AI. Session AI, we're a Silicon Valley startup. It's really interesting. The technology is pretty differentiated. It's an AI that understands behavior in real time in the first click, second click, third click, fourth click, fifth click, and beyond. We're understanding what people are doing and looking at their signals to decide, are they going to buy? Are they not going to buy? Or if they're on the fence in the moment. So we'll talk about what that means. And so we're able to actually understand and predict with no customer data at all. We can bring customer data in. And so we talked about AI decisioning, offer fit, high touch, and others. But they're very focused on customer data. And I would say, like, we have a real belief in the world that we can understand people based on their behavior. And so we can take into account customer data, but really like understanding what people are doing at that moment. We can predict whether someone will buy or they won't buy if they're on the fence. And then you treat those people very, very differently, right? So if you understand that someone's going to buy, you suppress offers, you drive them to upsell. If you understand that someone's really on the fence at that moment, you can give them kind of this AI nudge where you push them to conversion in the moment, understanding their behavior really deeply. We've been able to do this for a bunch of clients, some of the biggest names in e-commerce, and I'm just wanted to share some of those use cases. So, Beyond is using it to drive conversion rate and margin at the same time by understanding who needs a discount and who doesn't. And the very ubiquitous 20% off Bed Bath & Beyond coupon. We had the opportunity to speak on stage with them very recently in the last month or two. Also, Tailored Brands, they drove 13% higher conversion rate and got a 19x ROI on this too, where they're actually suppressing offers and giving them to the right people at the right time. And just to break this down, what I think is pretty interesting here is that 65, we found over a lot of customers is that 65% of the promo budget really is redeemed by people who are already going to buy. So there's just a ton of money that ends up being wasted. This is one retailer. It's $11 billion retailer. We actually, if you can see, they spend about $105 million on annual discounts, and 83 million of that was going to people who are already going to buy. And so obviously you can't get rid of all of that, but what we were able to do is actually reduce their overall promo spend 35% and then drive $40 million to the bottom line. So $40 million savings on $105 million. It's real. This is like a real AI use case that's happening now. I think there's a lot of these kind of generative use cases that are, people are still trying to figure out, but this is one that is real and driving impact already today. We're seeing still, tons of companies are still relying on site-wide offers. But if you are able to actually reduce down the site-wide discount rate, you can create a huge budget for these people who are you're able to actually influence in the moment. What this looks like you take essentially, you move from full site-wide offers to introducing some real-time AI offers, and then you drive down the site-wide over time to drive down your discount rate. And so this is just one use case of this AI technology and understanding behavior in real time. But it is just such a valuable one. It just makes a ton of sense that there'll be an optimization layer on incentives in real time across the board. And so we're just the first ones there, but this is going to be a thing in the industry. And you can see that there's just too much money being spent for it not to be optimized in real time. All right, so I think we talked about AI a lot here, and over the last year, we kind of talked about how you need to have a story for AI last year. We had a very similar conversation last year. I would say this year you really need to come with receipts. And so if you want to scan this, you take out your phone right now and scan this. This will just go directly to LinkedIn. I can send you resources around AI decisioning, but also then some of the kind of AI resources that we've given people so they can have a better understanding as AI overall, because I really think as executives and marketers, e-commerce folks in retail, really understanding AI at a deep level is going to unlock a lot for people's careers. So please scan that and reach out to me. I would love to help people along the way. Thanks a lot.
Great. Great. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. We've got a question actually I want to ask you from David Bolotsky, the CEO of Uncommon Goods. You mentioned the dramatic reduction in cost. How will this be impacted if companies can no longer raise money for free? For instance, OpenAI's recent $40 billion fundraise. Do you want to take that first question? Happy to repeat it too.
Yeah. So the question here, it's how be impacted if companies can't raise money for free. So I do think I still think there's just as what will the business model be for search? Will it still be ad or click driven? I still think that it will be. I really do think that search still will be, ad or click driven. I think there's still the attention that people, whoever owns the customer, essentially owns someone's attention, like owns the customer, right? And so Google has been able to essentially extract almost all of the margin in non-differentiated e-commerce businesses, right? So if you have the same inventory as someone else, uncommon good is a great example of somewhere that's not like that, where you have a really unique set of products. But if you're selling the same thing as everyone else, search still will extract out, most of the profit there. And so I do think that, I think especially with ChatGPT, you'll find an AI search, you'll see that there will still be bidding for recommendations, and I think it may be like a little bit less transparent. Like, it's pretty obvious when there's a link, there's like 5 blue links that you're ranked with, but the AI will probably disclose that it's an ad or that it was paid for. But I do think that people will still be bidding in the background for, essentially products.
That's a great question. All right, we're going to go into our audience polls. Let's go ahead and take on a couple of questions. So the first question, what is the biggest challenge your company faces in adopting AI solutions? Is it A, data quality and integration issues, B, cost and resource constraints, C, lack of internal expertise, D, uncertainty about ROI, E, concerns over customer trust and AI transparency? I'm getting an update now. So it looks like you guys are saying with 35%, it's C, lack of internal expertise, followed by B, cost and resource constraints. That's really interesting to see. So just as a repeat, the leading response is C, the lack of internal expertise, and followed by B, cost and resource constraints, which are very closely linked. I'm going to go ahead then and hop into our next question, which I think is really interesting. So the second question is, which AI-driven innovations do you believe will have the most lasting impact on e-commerce? You can select up to 2. So is it A, AI-powered search and discovery, B, hyper-personalized customer experiences, C, generative AI for content creation, which could be product descriptions or optimizing ads, D, AI-driven pricing and demand forecasting, or automated customer support, which would be chatbots and virtual assistants? Responses, it's really, really close between A and B. So we're seeing about 34% of you have responded with AI-powered search and discovery, followed very closely with 31% of B, hyper-personalized customer experiences. So that's a great response. I think it's really interesting to hear where we have a lot of impact and opportunity for brands. I'm going to go ahead and go into our final question. That final question relates back to our upcoming webinar on conversational commerce and customer experience led by Alan, who's also on this call. The question is, which of the following challenges is your brand currently trying to solve or would like to try and solve? You can choose up to 3 when using conversational commerce tools. So it's either A, improving conversion rates, B, guiding customers to the right products, C, increasing customer engagement and personalization, D, reducing customer service lead, improving support, lastly, E, boosting average order value and retention. Okay, it looks like the leading response is improving conversion rates. And it's very closely tied with B, C, and E. So I think we all want higher conversion rates, as well as higher AOVs and retention. But from top down, it's A, improving conversion rate at 28%, and B, guiding shoppers to the right products at 22%. Lastly, E, boosting AOV and retention. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel. And Rob, if you can go ahead and bring everyone back into the room, let's go ahead and start. Mike, why don't you go ahead and start an introduction, mention who you are, who you work with, and your role.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Dupuis. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Catalyst Brands. Catalyst Brands is a relatively newly formed organization that is a merger from Spark Brands, our Spark Group, and JCPenney. So we have common ownership, and about 3 months ago, our owners decided to bring the companies together. So we have 6 brands in the portfolio, coming from the Spark side: Aeropostale, Nautica, Lucky Brand, Eddie Bauer, and Brooks Brothers. And now we are joined together with our friends at JCPenney to form Catalyst Brands. So very happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Annie, why don't we go up with you next?
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Annie Soderstrom. I am the VP of Digital Product here at Skims. Skims is a women's wear apparel company, intimates company that is fairly new. We're about 5 years old as of today.
Great. Next, how about you, Dan?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Kavarski. I'm head of digital here at Archipelago Companies. We own and operate a couple lifestyle brands, Olakai, Melon, and Rourke being the biggest. And we recently launched Tradewind Services, which will be bringing on other companies outside the portfolio to help, grow their e-commerce experience.
Awesome. And back to you, Jason.
Yeah, so I'm Jason Siva. Thanks for listening. CMO at Session AI. I've been in Silicon Valley for the last 20 years. Companies like Eightfold AI, Bloomreach for a number of years. Definitely like a geek for tech, and so excited to be here and have this conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for being here and making it out. This is a super popular topic. It was one of our most well-attended webinars last year. And I think with that in mind, I'd like to open up with our first question, which is, what do you think has changed in the last 12 months between last year to this year? What do you think the areas of opportunity are? And so, Annie, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Of course. What do you think has changed in the last 12 months, specifically in regards to AI, as well as adoption with regards to e-commerce?
Of course. Thank you. So AI adoption, or adoption more, I guess, of the concept of AI is something that we're constantly talking about and having webinars about and hearing about at conferences. If not real life use cases, has become so rapid that I feel like the term itself sort of means everything and nothing all at the same time. It's kind of become a catch-all term for a technology that is constantly changing every single day and has an incredible number of uses in this industry and well outside it. So overall, I think at this time last year, AI was this really cool thing. We were all just kind of, figuring out how to use GPTs, that kind of thing. And now it's really become a non-negotiable for survival in e-commerce. It's really no longer distinguishable, I'd say, from e-commerce in general, because we're all using it so consistently across the industry in different ways. From the customer standpoint, we're also starting to see obviously more adoption in using LLMs, but seeing that kind of reflect itself on our sites. So I've noticed that when customers are using on-site search, they're using longer queries. It's not just like black t-shirt, it's like black t-shirt that I can wear to a concert in Miami in May. So how are we using neural search? How are we updating our technology to react to that kind of thing? We're also seeing, essentially doubling of people who are directly coming from LLMs to our site every single month. So people are getting much more used to doing some of their original shopping inquiries in these spaces as opposed to a Google search.
Great. I love that you bring up like how the customer is using it in addition to how you guys are preparing. I love that it's both a twofold experience within the team. Dan, what about you? What do you think has changed in the last 12 months? I think you may have some thoughts from when we did our initial intros. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely evolved. You think 26 months ago they released ChatGPT. Everyone's like, "What's this cool new thing?" Everyone's testing it out. We started working with Sierra early to do our customer service virtual agent. So we launched that at the beginning of last year, and that was kind of us scratching the surface on the forward-facing, AI and e-commerce. And I think everything, last year was definitely across all brands. I saw a rise in that customer service chat agent that moved on from a chatbot that can do more than just, returns and exchanges. And I think it was all geared reactive. Everything was like, how are we reducing the amount of stress on the team and tickets and getting to the customer faster? Now I think everything is switched to being proactive revenue driving. How are we getting the customer to check out faster, getting them to find the products? Search and discovery has completely evolved, like Annie was saying. I think we're seeing every open box is now a chat box that they can be, I'm going on a trip to Hawaii, what best sandals should I have, type of thing. And that's what we're seeing all across the board. So I think it's a fundamental shift in the way customers are using the technology, and it's just evolving every day. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I like that you say last year was reactive and this year it sounds like it's more proactive. I think that's a really good segue, Mike. I'd love to hear from you. I mean, you have some thoughts on this matter as well, given especially the opportunity and the proactive response.
Yeah, I mean, I love what Annie and Dan have already said, and I do love the sort of that close by Jason in terms of like last year, I'm going to misquote, but bring your ideas. This year, bring your receipts. I think for probably everybody on this webinar, a year ago, executive teams and certainly boards were, requiring teams like ours to be able to dimensionalize how are we thinking about AI and ML, and we can talk. I know we're going to talk a little bit more as we go through the webinar on how the different brands represented here have been able to do that. There's no question that this year that's not going to be good enough, and it's not about, okay, well, we have a few pilots and we're measuring response. This is really about needing to deploy and or scale and really get meaningful results and savings, from the different AI sort of tests. So this is really the year where I think they have to scale. The results have to be there, and I will talk a lot more about some sort of practical applications, but I definitely think it's arrived.
I love that. I love that you bring up, where we were thinking about this contextually last year versus much more of an accelerated speed this year. And it reminds me of when, Jason, you brought up how people are willing to give up agency and even have less in terms of results, and maybe it's less overwhelming. I think that it also calls back to your point about AI decisioning. I mean, you've shared your thoughts from the presentation, but is there anything else that you'd like to add? Any additional color?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cost pressures are pushing people to do things that are like really different than they might do otherwise, let's say. So I think you're seeing a lot of like labor costs being replaced with AI, or people having to do like a lot more with less, like much smaller teams, but getting a lot more output. And so you're seeing it not only in the platforms that touch the customers, but you're seeing it in the work that people are doing as marketers,
Right.
and like the e-commerce catalog, things like that. I mean, there's whole companies that are popping up that are almost like features, right? Where it's like a AI use case feature that will probably be part of a bigger e-commerce platform, but
Right.
it's just such a novel AI use case that like people are starting companies around them because it's so value driving. And so I think what I'm seeing across e-commerce is that you see like the kind of like forward thinking leaders like going and trying things that are really probably pretty different than, and maybe outside of even their like purview. Sometimes it like touches some of these AI tools like actually touch like a couple different groups. Like you might touch e-commerce and marketing and merchandising to get something done. And so like the really smart leaders are actually like getting people all together across these groups to like drive change around the technology. So.
Yeah, and I keep hearing how folks are using across different functions internally, whether it's Gen AI, it's specific platforms for different purposes for productivity. We hear a lot about productivity, and we talked about efficiency and better margins, dealing with very small bandwidths and teams. What do you think is the opportunity for growth and innovation? Like, can you share some use cases? Can you share something beyond just efficiency from that angle? And happy to, Annie, if you want to lead, or Mike, whoever wants to weigh in on that question. It's kind of a loaded one.
So, obviously, vibe coding and Copilot and all that good stuff is where we're concentrated with internal efficiencies. I think in terms of externally, there's a few places that we've really started to dig into in terms of customer facing stuff. So first and foremost, really, really interested in how to optimize our site for LLM crawlers. To the points that were made earlier, the future we see, way down in the future, maybe people don't even visit websites. They're doing all their shopping, through AI agents. And we need to make sure that our site is optimized for those AI agents to serve us up, first thing to that customer every time. So very similar to SEO, but completely different. So we are just starting to dig in on that. We've kind of contracted with an agency that specializes just in this. And we're really excited to get in early and really understand how much we can use that as kind of an upper funnel trigger for us. We're also really looking into AI imagery. So obviously H&M had some big news last week and people are really digging into how we can use it there. But photo shoots are so expensive and we're a brand that likes to show multiple sizes and multiple colors. And there's all kinds of really interesting things you can do there to cut costs and also make images that really compel the customer. And then finally, Perplexity is everyone's talking about Perplexity right now. Of all the LLMs, I'd say it's one that's most focused on e-commerce. You have the ability to use Shop Pay right there. You can check out right in app, all that good stuff. So we are in the process of connecting our product feed so that we can always keep the most updated information to those customers there and see the effect that has. So it's a lot of kind of experimentation, learning right now. I don't think we're expecting any of these to have a credible impact on our business right away, but the assumption is that within 2, 3 years, 4 years, they will. And so we're getting started early.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds like you're doubling down on investment opportunities. And with that, there could be user behavior changes, but you're prepared. I like that you're also thinking about the customer, the utility. It could be a gamble, but this time next year when we have the same webinar, it'll be really interesting to see where things have evolved. So I love that response. Dan or Mike, I'm curious, do you guys have some brand use cases or what are you guys seeing on your side?
Yeah, I can jump in. I mean, I think what Annie and Skips is doing is pretty similar to our approach. You got to put your eggs in a couple baskets. I spent a lot of time explaining to the executive suite like why these investments make sense, and they may not pay off right away. I think that's the biggest challenge. It's like, all right, we're in a tougher macroeconomic climate. Meta, Google Ads are skyrocketing as far as costs and performance, and you're seeing deliverability challenges across email and things like that. So how do we improve that there? So we've kind of dug into starting analyzing traffic sources in a different way. I feel like, it used to always be bot equals bad traffic, like what does that mean? And so like really trying to identify, all right, what's the key to, being searchable and being crawled by the right bots, the right virtual agents. I think, we are seeing the agent to agent, whether it's not completing the actual purchase now, they're getting 99% of the way so that, the consumer can pick up in basically just one click and be ready for checkout. So focusing on that aspect of it. We've also dug into, analytics. How are we using LLMs to, track across multiple channels? We have big wholesale, retail, and, our e-commerce business. And we really want to identify trends in the products, whether, what's selling, what's unexpected, how do we get that information back to our product teams? And, if we see any ways we can optimize, plan future planning. So I think that's another big one. And then like Annie said, I think the image thing, I think creative teams don't want to relinquish control, especially as such an image forward brand like Olokai we have, but we are starting to leverage it to, do different things when it comes to ads and being able to move quickly and obviously do more A/B testing and really, identify what resonates with the customer in the right channel at the right time. So, leveraging the AI to get to that outcome.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I want to get to one of the questions from our viewers. This comes from Janet Megdadi, Enterprise Growth Leader at Bolt. Mike, how do you think about leveraging AI assistance across a portfolio of brands?
Yeah, I think, and my Annie and Dan have offered some great, real practical examples. I think if I look at the sort of cross-brand opportunities, a few of them come to mind right away. We're using AI and ML models within our CDP environment, for example, to do identity resolution, right? And I think most brands at this point have sort of crossed that bridge, but it's important not to sort of look past that, because that's a critical use case. I think then if you take that forward, the advances in dynamic audience creation to drive marketing efficiency and response, Annie and Dan have already mentioned. Then a layer on top of that for let's call it asset contextualization and personalization. So I think the biggest cross-brand opportunities reside within likely the data layer. I think over time, I would say, and Annie referenced this, that there may very well be a day not too long from now where there is more traffic from these LLMs than there are from sort of live humans at a keyboard. I agree with that. I think in that context, we think about how rich our data layer is, whether it's single brand or cross brand, and how rich our product catalog is, whether that's single brand or cross brand, and the ability, as they both mentioned, to serve that data up in the most efficient and relevant way.
You guys had mentioned, and thanks for that, Mike, but it made me think about something earlier that both Jason and Dan had touched on. As you're getting better data and, with AI decisioning coming into play, do you guys think that you are getting a better understanding of the customer from a 360 point of view? And is that informing your marketing teams and your marketing channels, and how you guys are able to work more efficiently but also faster?
Yeah, I can jump in first there. I mean, I like to joke that traditional segmentation's dead. Like basically it's that one-to-one hyper personalization. You have so much information about the customer now. So we're really relying on the LLMs and the AI to help us, serve that truly personalized experience. It's not just good enough to have personas. So I mean, that's kind of the way we're looking at it. And as Mike was saying, it starts in the CDP and being able to cross-reference across a bunch of different sources. It's a new challenge, but I mean, I think the hardest part is having the creative ready to go to, give them that offer that will really resonate.
Yeah, and
I would say here too, like it used to be that this understanding of a customer was like break it down into traditional segments and like if I have more information about this person, I guess I could do better in my targeting, or I guess I could do better on the offer. And I think what's happening is the AI tools are actually changing that dynamic so that it's like a real conversation with the people. You can actually be reflexive with behavior, right? So like if someone does a thing, it takes an action, but it's not a rule that got you to that action. It's actually the AI that gets you to that action and delivers a much better experience for people. And so customer data is one input, behavior is one input, and then like Mike was saying too, like it's the catalog, it's the information that you have to offer, and then the marketing assets, and it's the blend of all of those things. But then the AI actually deciding who gets what at what time, and that you might not actually like quote unquote understand the person better, but they are getting a much better experience because the AI is actually delivering the right to the right person.
I like that. I think that there's also it really interesting comment coming in from our audience about just a brand like Sephora, a retailer that's leveraging AI, whether it's through their try on and skin matching. You both have the convenience, but just a better understanding coming in from that point. All these different touch points that they're able to really collect on the consumers. So I love that. If we have some time for one more question, I want to ask the panel from Michael McNerney, the publisher at Martech Record. He's curious about what the panel sees as what will be the emerging ad models around AI. Would it be an affiliate model? Does it allow brands to get closer to blended deals where different marketing teams are incentivized to work together and measure those results together? I think that's a really great question. I feel like the affiliate model, it would be an interesting play. Does anyone want to take this question on?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of disruption that's happening in that space, and especially as we talked about, if the dynamic shifts materially to you know, um, product and information being served up at a greater percentage than sort of pushed to, if you will. So affiliate model, absolutely. I think understanding how these ad models get woven into these AI agents, I still think is like super early days. So I think many of us are just sort of sitting and watching some of these early players step out there to understand how those models are going to emerge. I certainly don't have an answer to that right now.
Yeah, I know that recently, AI has Meta stepped up their AI powered ad service, and I think we're looking to see what opportunity is there. I think it really, to the question's point, whether it's multiple agencies or just an abundance of content and ads in there that as their model gets better and has more data, I think what they're betting on is that it'll actually help provide, that better one-to-one personalization that we discussed before. Again, it remains to be seen, and it's always scary putting all your eggs in their basket without having control in the back end. But I think it's something that we're excited to see where it goes.
Right.
Yeah, I would say it also went from like a CPM, like you went from like kind of the CPM, like visibility model to like CPC with clicks. I wouldn't be surprised if it moves to like the entire transaction, and then they're just like parceling out the transaction to who wants it. So, which is honestly like kind of a terrible thing for e-commerce retailers, right? I mean, if they can actually get all the way to the transaction without even like going to the brand, like that's worse for people because you have less and less power. And so, I would say though so it feels almost like an affiliate, but it goes all the way to the transaction. So it'd be almost like a cost per transaction versus cost per click or attention.
Thanks for that. We are at the 5-minute mark, so I want to close by giving the panel a final question of just future forward. Where do you think the opportunities are? Since the rate of change is accelerating, where do you think things will change and how we're going to think about AI in the next 12 months? And if you guys want to go ahead and take it away with 1 minute each, just since we're so close to the end, why don't we go ahead and get your thoughts on that?
I can jump in here. I think the opportunity is education. Honestly, know what's going on, know what's out there, and make sure your team is coming along with you. I think, there's a lot of grassroots AI initiatives going on, and some people are learning and some people aren't. But unless the entire organization is coming with you with where you're going and what your focus is and how these tools are best used, it's going to be really hard to kind of step into that next moment as a company that's truly AI first and using it in the right way.
I love that.
I can jump in. If you haven't already, sort of taken your digital ecosystem and sort of split it into sectors where you have AI and ML already working, I would do that. If you've already done that, then I would sort of ensure that you have success criteria outlined for the different efforts that you have going on so that you can prioritize the ones that are going to drive the biggest impact. I'll go back quickly to something Tracy said, which is the way that we think about it, which is everyone here is under a tremendous amount of pressure to drive efficiency, but it's critical for all of us that we also talk about growth. And so this year, I'm seeing a lot of traction around trying to divide those highest priority initiatives into one or the other, and seeing executive teams and boards being a lot more receptive when you use that language to help ladder up into what no doubt is a broader agenda. So, and I think the tools are advancing at such a rate that, as we said before, we're going to see real scale this year.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on what Mike said. I think having true KPIs, we're examining each part of the tech stack, every piece of the website, where there are consumer touch points, and what is the new ways we can leverage AI to enhance those. So I think that's step one. And then changing the mindset internally of the company. It's not enough to just go play with, what's just recently released with AI, with image generation, things like that, but like really find tools that enhance each department's productivity, create that efficiency to allow them to focus on the strategy problems, is kind of where we're going, and really making sure, we carve out time and make it a mindset, almost a business objective by department, to really change the way we think about it.
Yeah, and I would jump in and just say, like, make some bets with things that are real right now. Like, there's a lot of, it's like some of this stuff is such science fiction and it's so cool, but like there are things that are actually like drive your business forward in the next 12 months. We're seeing like a lot of people actually budgeting for that and doing that right now. But then also I would say, like, keep the science fiction stuff top of mind too, because I think with the AI tools, things are like okay, and then they're like amazing, like immediately, right? I mean, even ChatGPT was kind of like that. If you saw like ChatGPT 2, it was like kind of terrible, and then immediately it was amazing. And so
Right.
I think hitting some of the things that are real, and then making sure that you're keeping your eye on the things that seem like might be fake but will be real someday.
Great. Well, with that, thanks everyone for your time. And again, and I love that we ended it about, education, creating a mindset, focusing not just on growth efficiency, but also, innovation, Mike, to your point. And Jason, I thanks again for your time and for all the thought leadership that you guys have shared on the call today. Thanks also to our audience. Thanks for the comments and the feedback. This is going to be available on our YouTube channel. So if you missed it, don't worry, feel free to review later. So I want to thank the team also at Commerce Next, and also again, our panel and our sponsors. So awesome, guys. I appreciate it.